how did me and you have talked about it all the time. How did you start believing in God? You know what I'm saying? Like, how did you come to that conclusion? How did I get to a point where I no longer believe what you believe? You know what I'm saying? We don't hate each other. We have two different belief systems, yet we can sit there and listen to each other. And I'm like, okay, I understand how you arrived and why you see the world the way you see it. And I feel like you have an understanding of why I see the world the way I see it. And somewhere in the middle, there's at least a mutual understanding and respect of how that person got there, because we're not mutually destructive. Our belief systems are not mutually destructive. They leave room
Right.
for the other person to grow and communicate. And as long as we're both doing positive things in our own way, and not hurting other people, it's kind of like a live and let live society, which is where we need to get back to. Like, we're talking about conflict and how to resolve conflict, right? But we're also talking about when is it necessary to have that violent resolve to overthrow tyranny or overthrow evil or overthrow hate. Well, at a certain point, you've got to decide what that target is. You know what I'm saying? Is it if it's an ideology, you can't do it. We've seen it. We tried for 20 years in Afghanistan. You can't defeat an ideology.
Right.
The global war on terror is going to rage on forever, and it's just going to take a different form. And that's all it did in Iraq and Afghanistan. And that's all it's going to do for the rest of the time, because you can't stomp out an ideology until something comes along and just completely undermines it to the point where no one believes it anymore. And I have yet to
Right.
see one ideology in history that hasn't survived all of history. Not one. There are still people who believe in Nazism. We fought an entire world war and stomped them completely out, and there's still people who believe in that ideology. There are still people who believe in multiple gods, even though for history all the Abrahamic religions try to stomp that out. They're still here. There's still
Right.
records. They still believe. So you
Right.
can that goes from religion to politics to just anything you believe. You can't stomp out an ideology, but you can stop groups of people. You can stop governments. You can stop actual tyranny. We stopped the actual Nazi party. Are there still Nazis around? Yeah, I mean, they think they're Nazis, but like, are they ever going to own a country again? No. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? The worst that they're going to be is
Right.
domestic terrorists at
Right.
this point. And I'm not downplaying that. I'm just saying they'll never have a
Right.
political party again.
Right.
It's about the best we can hope for.
Right.
That's a victory. And so when we're looking at the modern era and it comes to conflict resolution, which is what we need in our own government today, because we're so polarized, nobody is willing to sit down and meet in the middle and be like, okay, I understand you're here and I'm here. How do we get here so that the most people that we can are affected in a positive way and the least amount of people are affected in a negative way? Because unfortunately, we can't make everybody happy. And that's another
Right.
thing people don't realize about conflict resolution. Ground always has to be given.
Right. Right.
Unless you have a
That.
scorched earth
Yeah.
policy, somebody's giving ground.
Somebody's
Or,
going to, I mean, you have to, that's why compromise comes in. That's where, it's interesting, Damien, man, we'd love to have you come on, bro. Definitely. Made a good point with saying, like, that's the issue of replacing evil for good and good for evil. I think, when discussing aspects of good and evil, I think we live in such a relative society where what one group considers good is what other considers evil. What one considers evil, other one considers good. And so now that's where you have one of these big conflicts in society, because this postmodern and relativism is one of the things. Postmodernism and relativism is one of the things that causes the water to be so muddy.
so you say that,
Yeah.
and I just I just watched that movie not too long ago before I came back out here, The Pope's Exorcist, right? And this ties into what you were saying about how people believe good and evil and stuff like that. So it got me interested. It's a movie with Russell Crowe. He's the lead
Right. Yeah.
exorcist.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
came in the
I've seen a
90s. Blah, blah,
commercial
blah.
for it.
So anyway, so it's based off of a real guy. So that real guy wrote like 3 or 4 books. I just got 2 of his books and I felt like I want to read them. I feel like it'd be
Right.
really interesting to hear
Right.
his perspective on it. So I have a lot of friends here. I have one friend who's like extremely religious, like does Bible study in his room at night, has Bible quotes up all over his room and stuff like that. He's very meticulous. He's very disciplined about it. Great. One of the greatest guys I know. I went over to his room last night because I was sitting in my room and I had a question. I said, "Hey man, do you believe in exorcism?" Because he's always in the Bible and everything. And he's like, "Yes and no." He says, "The way they portray it in the movies, no, I don't think that happens anymore." He's like, "I think that the way they portrayed it in the movies is how it happened back in Jesus's time, because he was making a statement. They allowed that to happen to prove to people that Jesus was who he was." And
Right.
it was a much more in-depth
Right.
conversation, but for
I got
time's
you.
sake.
Right.
So then So then I was like, I thought about that, and I was like, that makes sense. That's a good way to look at it, because if you start, the further you read into the New Testament, the less and less you see, like you don't see the apostles after Jesus died fighting demons. You know what I'm saying? There's no,
Mm,
and unless you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in the Gospels, I
mm.
don't think there's any recollection of them. I'm not talking about Jesus. I'm talking about them, banishing, exorcising demons and stuff like that. I could be wrong, and if someone could correct me, that'd be great. I'll eat crow on it. But that's what
Yeah,
he was telling me, and he knows a lot more about it than I do. So
right.
then I asked another kid earlier today, in fact, and I said, "Do you believe that there's exorcism?" He's like, absolutely. I believe. And he said, "There's so much documentation that's coming out. There's so many. Obviously the movies really play it up. So we don't know how close it is, but there's so much documentation if you start to research. And I did. I spent a couple hours like looking into like the numbers of exorcisms per years,
Yeah,
and it's just a lot. It's a lot. Now, are all of them actual exorcisms? No. Obviously, now with modern science, we've discovered that a lot of people just have mental illness.
right.
Okay, but that doesn't exclude, you know, being able to prove that certain things are scientific does not exclude the fact that certain things cannot be explained by science, right?
Correct.
I would,
Absolutely.
I would actually make that. So that's the argument he made. He's like, so yeah, like let's say 1,000 years ago they were doing 1 million exorcisms a year. Well, now we're not doing 1 million because 990,000 of them are mental illness. But that 5%, all right, that 2%, he's like, that's evil, and that's what that priest was saying in that movie. And in some of his books, it's his actual quotes, and he's like, that 5%, he's like, that's evil. But he doesn't have to say the devil, he just says evil. So you're sitting here, we're looking at everything with modern eyes, saying that's not, that can't happen now. It could be happening, it could absolutely be happening. In fact, they do things right in front of our eyes, and we still don't
Right.
believe it. People still believe it's happening.
Yeah, no, it absolutely. The reality is that it absolutely is happening, and it's interesting you brought that up because yeah, like in the book of Acts, after Jesus came and went, they talk about in the book of Acts, it talks about a lot of things that went down with the disciples afterwards.
Yeah.
How they went on and they were casting out demons, all kind of stuff, and and one of the things you talk about is that you would know people by the demonstration of power and not by kind words. And so yeah, and demons and all that kind of stuff is still a very real thing. I mean, that stuff still very much exists. That stuff definitely still happens. There are nations under the influence of demons. There are people under the influence of demons. Like that stuff is real. Like and exorcisms still happen today, and that's true. So interesting enough, I've actually seen an exorcism in real life, and I've been present, and it's wild, bro. Like
So what?
it's
So you're saying it was a real exorcism, not mental
there was
illness.
no, this was yeah, it was a lady.
We're gonna we're gonna we're
I
gonna have to
we
talk about
got it.
this.
Yeah,
I have more than 20 minutes worth of questions that
yeah, yeah.
I need
I
answered.
know. So I
Like
was so
how do I get into the viewing box? You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
I need to see one.
So I'm gonna tell you. So one of the things that I've always been fascinated with that side of things because there are people who they have a gift of I guess you could say an extended access into the spiritual world in many aspects. And like I said, you go into the biblical side of it, but so I like essentially I'll tell you what happened. I was I was at church, we were doing some stuff, and I remember so they always open it up for, people to come down and get prayer, that kind of thing. Cool. I remember being in the room and, this lady comes in and she was like, she comes in and she's kind of like, something. She kept saying something was wrong, right? And so obviously, you think about like, okay, mental illness, something going on, she might be, having an issue with the house, whatever the case is, right? And it's like going to where you say like, things that are explained by science, but science cannot explain that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting there, and so she's with the group and they're praying for whatever. And then there's another lady at our church and she kind of was like, she kind of pulled one of the ladies aside and says, yo, she got basically said, she's got an entity on her and with her, right? And so, when you hear something like that, initially you're just kind of like, like in your natural mind, you're like, what? Yeah, you know, entity, you know, that kind of thing, right? So anyway, so they go in there and they begin to, the lady steps in there, she begins to pray and says, yo, and she starts going in. I'm just kind of overhearing. I can't repeat everything that I heard. It was just kind of happening, you know, around. So I'm just kind of watching, and I'm like, I'm like fascinated because I'm like, okay, is this really like what we about to see? Like, is this, you know what I'm saying? Is this, because, you know, you're curious, even somebody as a believer, you know, man, as a believer, when you start getting into the spiritual things, like there's some stuff that still brings up questions, that still brings up like, you're like, okay, all right, let me see what we're talking about here, right? So I'm watching. I was in the back, and I'm kind of watching, and I remember they begin to, you know, they begin to pray for it and everything. And can I tell? I'm gonna tell you, bro. And don't get me wrong, the movies play it up for sure, but I can tell you with my own eyes what I saw is that lady, when they started like praying and they started calling out this spirit or whatever, bro, this lady like like physically like started to change, bro. Like it was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like she really started like, and then Alex, and I wish I was, you know, I wish I was like, you know, imagining it or something like that. Like I watched this lady, like she start kind of like doing this and like grabbing the chair and like she's like twisting and turning and doing all that stuff, and you like, okay, what's really going on here? You know what I mean? Like, am I
Yeah.
watching some, you know, some something? And I remember watching. I mean, this lady, she start twisting and turning and pulling the chair and start like, you know, like her whole body was like it literally looked as if like something was fighting inside of her body to stay. And
Mm-hmm.
she started going back and forth talking about, you know, no, yes, you know, like talking crazy. And so I'm sitting there being like, yo, like and to be honest with you, and then like I said, I can only speak from experience, and that like the room shifted. Like you could feel it. Like it was weird, bro. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching this. I'm like, yo, and she starts screaming and like this, and next thing you know, she starts just violently, you know, like coughing and just like coughing and I mean, and she's fighting and they're like holding her, like they have to like I seen that the people like are restraining her because she went from being this normal, just kind of like, yeah, I just want to pray. I've been having some issues, some illnesses, that kind of stuff. To next thing you know, she start. I mean, and they had three people holding her. Like she was like overpowering people. And they like, no, get out, come out of here right now. I mean, it was like something out of a movie, bro, like real talk. Next thing you know, she's like, yo, she's screaming and all this kind of stuff. And then she just like slumps over, comes back, starts coughing like violently, bang, 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 bang. Before you know it, they were like, go get, and then the lady, she's normal. She just like, oh yeah, hey, it's about to come out. Go ahead and grab that trash can real quick. And and they grab the trash can, and the lady, she's next to you know, she just start and just throwing up and I'm like, yo, what am I watching right now? And and like, yeah, she start throwing up there, and the next thing you know, she kind of slumped over, and then the girl, the lady who, you know, was kind of leading the whole thing, you know, she was like, yeah, that's it, get it out, yeah, you're out of here, you're out of here. And then she said, y'all can let her go, she's good now. And I was just like, what? And next thing you know, bro, and like I said, I kid you not, the room, like it was like an anime, like the room, just like the tension broke in the room, and everything went back to like peaceful in the room. And the lady, she was all like kind of weak, you could tell, but then she was just like back to normal, and she just started crying. It was like like she had been freed from something that was holding her, you know. And the lady was, and the lady who led it, she was just like, yeah, yeah, it's like, yeah, she's good now, we're good, you can let her go, it's all right. They took the trash, you know, took it out or whatever, and the lady was like breathing, and it was like she just after this battle, and now they just comforted her and was like, yeah, it's all good, you're free now. And I I've seen that like with my eyes. And so, you know, it's one of those things, like I personally have never cast out a demon, you know what I mean? However,
Mm-hmm.
I do know that I have seen with my own eyes, and not even and for the sake of people who maybe don't believe whatnot the case is, I would say just from a natural standpoint, I have seen things with my own eyes that have all the characteristics of what you would call an exorcism and a deliverance. You know, so there's a whole thing called deliverance ministry where there are people out in the world now who their whole ministry is they go around casting demons out of people. And you know that, and that's something I've been digging in just from a spiritual perspective. Like, yo, am I like, you know, I'll be honest. I've been like, that's something that has been a big question mark in my mind. Like, where do we stand on a spiritual plane in today's world as opposed to where Jesus was? You know, because we know that there's. Go ahead, go ahead.
If you go around and you start exercising demons, I'm 100% coming with you. Like
Hey,
I'm down. All right.
hey,
You're gonna
yeah,
need
man.
you're gonna need a medic anyway. So like, it
So
might as well be me, bro.
I'm telling you, for real. Like I'm talking about. So there's a guy named like John Eckert. He's a preacher and he's does a lot of stuff with like demons and stuff like that, demonology, that kind of thing. And Derek Prince was another one. He had a bunch of stuff about demons and demonology and casting them out and so on and so forth. There's a bunch of preachers in the past like who like deliverance ministry is a thing, bro. And like and people always like, you have one hand where people are like, oh, that's just a bunch of acting, because you do have some charlatans out there
Yeah.
who, you know, they get people to come in the crowd and act like they, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I can tell you that from my experience, I have seen with my own eyes, you know, people like that one was the most graphic one that I've seen, you know. But like my grandmother, she's been around a long time, and she talks about how she's like seen with her own eyes people like start slithering across the ground and crawling and like all that stuff. Like, so put it like this: there are things in the spiritual realm that are talked about in the Bible, and there's acts that we don't know about in the Bible that were not documented. Because remember, at the end of the book of John, it says this was only a portion of the other things that were done that Jesus did. You know what I mean? So if we were to write all of them, it would be 10 more books, you know. So and you got to think about the book of Acts, where they have all the acts of the apostles, all the cast out demons and salvation, all that kind of stuff. Is written by Luke, who, you know, was a Greek. You know, he was a Gentile. He was not Hebrew. He was brought in the fold. He came in as a doctor. He's a medical doctor who wrote the book of Luke and the book of Acts. And he followed them and documented everything that he saw as a doctor. That's why his books are so detailed and vivid in the way he breaks stuff down, because he was medical. He was a doctor. And he said that and reading that and just seeing what I've seen from my little stuff, you know, I mean, I have seen some spiritual stuff in real life, you know what I mean? And so there's a lot of stuff that we cannot explain. And like I said, at the end of the day, it only further validates us. And I think one thing that further validates a lot of that stuff is the obsession with it in society. I mean, think about it. Society is so obsessed with this spiritual demonic world that it almost would be a far cry or a lack of common sense to think that stuff couldn't exist. You know what I mean? And so,
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been privy to plenty of things that
right,
I can't explain away.
right,
Like fucking plenty of them, right?
yeah,
So, I can tell you about experiences that I've had in Afghanistan. I can tell you experiences that I've had in New Orleans. Uh, I guess you could call them supernatural. And
right,
I think at a certain point, I think everyone's kind of witnessed or felt something that they couldn't explain.
right,
And depending on how they feel about the things, I think if you're more accepting of it, you're more you're more willing to talk about it and see it. If you're not, then you just kind of dismiss it away. I witnessed it before. It wasn't scary. Nothing I saw shocked me. It was more of a learning experience for me.
yeah,
That's cool. I mean, everybody's different. I mean, everything that I experienced especially when I was overseas, wasn't so much scary. It was just like, well, I mean, that happened.
right,
So not only, is the Taliban trying to kill me, but now we've got, like ghosts walking around in the middle of the night. So, this sucks. Yep, saw some
yeah,
stuff in
yeah,
Afghanistan. He was there. Damien was there.
yeah,
He was there. He what was that OP that they had? Damien. He'll get back to us in a minute.
yeah,
There was an OP where they were like, I think they did like a whole documentary on one of those paranormal research shows. They like
yeah,
interviewed the guys and stuff like that. And they were hearing like Russians whisper at night and stuff like that.
yeah,
Shit was crazy, man. And a bunch of shit was seen like throughout the country and stuff like that. But I mean, there's always a lot of supernatural stuff during wartime, a lot of
Yeah.
UFO sightings during wartime and
Right.
stuff like that. But anyway, we got way off the topic of
Yeah,
conflict
we went
resolution.
we went to the depths, boy. We went to the
We
we
took
went to the
we took
fringe
that
on
one
that
around.
one, boy.
Tune into our next show, which is going to be me and Reese going around OP Rock. That's what it was. Me and Reese going around casting out demons. Well, I'll be watching. He'll be casting. Maybe I can
Yeah,
catch
yeah,
drone
yeah.
too.
Yeah. I actually took a class. So I actually took a class about it, talking about demonology and demons and things like that. And so it was. So I think what it was when I saw the situation with the lady, it wasn't so much that it was like Christian said, it wasn't so much that it was scary. It was more like, wow, like I'm witnessing this in real life. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing this. Like I've read about it. I've heard about it. So when you actually are in it, and I think the same, but think about it, it's the same thing when it comes to combat or anything else. Like people can talk about it all they want, you can
Mm-hmm.
read about it all you want, but until you actually experience it, it's like, oh, this is happening like in real
Yep.
time. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what it was for me, and it was like, man, this is different. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is happening. And so, but yeah, we got way off topic. I think. But I mean, sometimes it's necessary. There's certain things that need to be said, and I think they happen for a reason. Clearly, it was a topic that needed to be brought up. Clearly,
It
uh,
just popped up.
you
I
know,
mean, I was trying to use that as an example,
yeah,
and it just
and it
kind of
just turned into we
it took
just
off.
went off the fringes. But that's okay. That's
That's
okay.
all
We
right.
got plenty of
Well,
episodes, but at the end of the day, I don't even know what time it is, bro. I don't even know how long we've been on. I don't even know what
we're about to hit our hour, bro, and
we're about to hit the hour.
but
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
But
So what we started talking about was conflict resolution, and what we were going to do conflict resolution. Then we kind of went off into like when is it necessary to have violent conflict resolution or
right,
violent protests against the government and stuff like that. And I
right,
think we kind of agree that timing is important. It's subjectivity. The winner is going to get to judge whether or not it was righteous or not. Um, and I think certain levels of, you can call it evil, you can call it tyranny, you can call it whatever gets your blood going. I think at a certain point, violence is the deciding factor in a lot of major events in history, because violence does drive change faster than most other things change it. Now, is that true for every instance in history? 100% no. Some things have been 100% achieved through peace. However, the fastest change that you'll see is absolutely through violence, which I think is something else we should jump into another time. And Damien, we love to have you on to talk about all this stuff. Y'all want to far off with this, because people in power right now, that's their religion, which I think is important to understand why they do what they do and why they tap into. Yeah, 100%. I think religion is, in my opinion, religion is too ingrained in government in certain ways, and maybe not ingrained enough in other ways. Like I said, there should
well,
always be a balance.
I think one of the things Damien's kind of getting at though is that, so on one aspect, yeah, you could argue that religion is too ingrained, or you could say, I mean, you could argue both that religion is too ingrained in the government, or you could argue that religion isn't ingrained enough from an actual principle perspective, as opposed to not a belief perspective, from a principle perspective, right? From a like, we're getting so far away from any foundational principles of any sort, like everything is just whatever now, that we're getting so many crazy things that you could argue that you need more structure and principle. I mean, in principle. And I keep saying that, not structure as in, you need to believe what I believe. I'm not saying that. I'm saying from a principle perspective, you reap what you sow, don't kill, don't, steal, that kind of stuff, that kind of perspective.
Oh,
But
we
on the
talked
flip
about it.
side,
We talked about it before. How, I mean, there's a lot of beliefs there's just morality that's universal.
correct,
I
correct,
believe there really is universal morality, and people
right,
be like, "Oh no, it's not. All morality is subjective." To a point, it is, but I think most societies will agree you shouldn't
right,
murder people.
right.
You just shouldn't do it.
You
You
won't
know what I'm
last
saying?
long. You won't last long
You know
doing
what
that.
I'm saying?
Right.
So
I think,
go ahead.
my bad, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was just
No,
thinking
go ahead. Go
about
ahead. Go
one
ahead.
more one more thing that Damien was hitting at, is I think that the other side of what he was kind of getting on was the people in power, they are speaking from a place of a specific belief system that is based on many of these immoral, demonic ways. And I think that's, I think that's something that's to be talked about. Because, I mean, it is openly known that a lot of these big-time elite people, they are involved in some very shady, spiritual, religious stuff. I mean, that whole like sacrificing, selling your soul, like all that kind of stuff, like that's very real aspects of what some of the weird stuff that they
Well,
do in
a lot
real
of
life.
these secret societies and stuff like that, and they have, what is it, like the Blinderberg group, and like they have documentation of these elites meeting and doing these
Right,
rituals and
right.
stuff like that.
Rituals,
And yes,
yeah,
and 100%, there are certain things that people do just to, you're paying homage to your past. They're not real rituals. However, at a certain point, it starts to get a little weird when they've been doing it the same way for a long time, and certain people come out of it, and certain things
right,
happen when these
right.
things happen.
And it
And
begins to
it's
influence your decisions.
only a conspiracy. You know how we love conspiracies. Like, I'm gonna tell you the newest conspiracy that I just heard. Go find me a video of those people getting in that sub that just imploded. 2023. Find me one video of them actually getting in the sub into the water. I'll wait. Someone find it for me. It doesn't exist. It hit me today. Someone sent me a message, and they're like, and it was a video of this dude on TikTok, and he's like, show me a video of them getting in the sub. He's like, nobody took a video of it. No, there's no evidence that
Yeah.
they actually got into the
This
sub.
groundbreaking,
I'm like,
this
God damn it.
groundbreaking tourism event, and no one has a video of them getting in the sub. Well, here's the other side of it. I mean, you saw that thing I sent you about the sub, and it was talking about how you saw that video of well, not the video, the post I sent you, where it was like Monday the report was, the sub was missing or whatever. Tuesday the report was they heard a sound. Wednesday they said the sub blew up. Thursday everybody's gone or whatever the case is. And the next thing was on Sunday, before any of that, the SEALs already knew that sub blew up.
Yeah, well,
But the
because
media,
the military has the equipment to go down there
yeah, they can go
immediately
down
and
there and
get
see.
them. They can go down there and get them or see them, and they're probably like, hey, they're dead. And the media's like, hold on, they're going to be dead on Thursday. All right,
Right, they're going to be dead Thursday because we need
there was somebody
to
else
get over the fact that the $6 billion is missing from the Pentagon. Joe Biden's under an impeachment vote right now. What was the other thing?
Hunter Biden got off. BlackRock and JP Morgan just secured all the rights to rebuild Ukraine. There was a coup with
Russia,
the Wagner Group.
Yeah,
the Wagner Group turning on Russia, and then they paid them off or whatnot.
Right, and they ended
in Belarus to attack from the north. So
right,
yeah. So
no, it's so crazy because to me, and we always talk about this. If at this point right now you look at the world and look at the media, you look at CNN, you look at Fox, you look at all these folks, and you still think that they all have your best interests in mind, and you don't see that something's wrong. And I'm not saying you got to be deep on the fringes with the conspiracies, but the fact that if you still see everything in the world and you still are kind of like, oh no, the government and everybody's for us, then you might want to really rethink. You don't want to see the truth. You know what I mean? At this point. And I'm not saying we have all the answers. I'm just saying that to say that this is not possible, to say that these things don't exist, to say that no, you're just speculating, you're a conspiracy theorist, you might want to, take some time to really reevaluate what you're trying to do with your life, because it's really delusion to say that you don't see that something's wrong. You saw that clip I sent you.
One of my great loves is when you have like one of your more I don't want to say ignorant, but more like not in touch friends, and they finally sit down. They're like, dude, they're like, bro, the government does a lot of bad things, and you're like, yeah, no shit, and they're like, man, I pay a lot of money in taxes and nothing gets done. I'm like, oh yeah, no shit. You welcome to the fucking club. We're in our 30s now. I've been trying to tell you this since I was 20. I've been working for the government on and off for the last, I don't know, 15, almost 20 years of my life. Bro, they lie.
Right.
They're not your friend.
Right.
They're not out to help you.
The government is not.
It's been a long time since
the government is not your friend. What was my public service announcement a long time ago? The government is not your friend. Oh yeah, The Simpsons.
New season of Black Mirror in the first episode. What was it? Was it about a sub that exploded? Is that what
no, I don't know, but I know that
the second part of the message.
Netflix released a new season of Black Mirror, and the first episode was about Oh, we haven't seen the second part yet.
Okay.
I mean, but think about it, and I agree with you. You know, think about it, it's the same thing as like with the whole train wreck, and you got the two people who live in the town with the train wreck. They were in a Netflix movie about a town with a train wreck. You know that point, like it's like some of this stuff is like it's
You
almost comical.
dial it back to crisis actors, man, where people, they were calling people crazy for saying these people are crisis actors, and then, you know, you start
You start seeing the same people showing up in all these different situations.
it's not even that, but you start digging into these things, and the way they do it is they make people feel like they're crazy because they have a few questions, and I'll say something, and this for me, this is very 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 controversial, right? You go back to like the Newtown shootings in Connecticut, right, way back in 2012. You remember those, right, where all the kids
Right.
got obliterated,
Right.
right?
Right.
What was crazy to me is that was at a time, dude, that was at like a high time of them
Yeah.
leaking
Yeah.
everything, anything that would get them attention. Dude, where are the
Right.
crime scene photos?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like those are
Right.
questions that I have.
Right.
Now, do I
No, I
does it
mean,
keep does it keep
I
does it
get
does
it.
it
I
keep me up
mean,
at
and
night? The Vegas
yeah,
shooting. Oh my god, dude, the Vegas shooting was like one of
yeah.
the
There's
worst in
so
the
many.
news.
There's
And then as soon as people started asking questions, dude, you didn't see it, and they haven't
it
talked about it
disappeared. Yeah.
since it happened.
And you hate to, and like I said, you hate to one downplay people's losses because lives were lost. On the flip side, from an objective standpoint, you look at it like, man, there's a lot of holes in this, bro. Like something ain't making no sense, bro. Because think about it, we want the violence to stop. We
Hmm.
want people to be able to live peacefully, to be able to live their lives and love and do all that kind of stuff. And you hate to, you know what it's similar to, bro? It's similar to V for Vendetta. You remember that, right?
I love the movie. Yeah.
It's similar to V for Vendetta, where it's like, all right, we understand these tragedies and crises that have been going on the last few years, whatever the case is, in the country. But then V shows you all this information where it's like, this was orchestrated by no. And remember when that cop at the end, when it clicked, he
Yep.
got that little flash drive, and then it all clicked and came together that this whole 20-year takeover of the government, the whole 20-year span of all these crises and all that kind of stuff, it goes all the way back to the concentration camp and the leaders of the and like you don't want it, like the stuff that happens that you see in these movies, you don't want it because like you said, it'll make you feel crazy. You know what I mean? It'll make you think like in yourself. You'll begin to look like, am I crazy? But then you start looking at stuff and it's like, man, you hate to think that it's possible that a government would do that for the purpose of power and control. But then if you look in history, governments have been doing that for the purpose of power and control for centuries. And yeah, it's wild, man. But that being said, contract revolution and communication, that's that.
We'll have to hit it again, man. Like we're just gonna have to
Yeah,
have a second round at it.
yeah. Where
Um,
is the love? You know what I
yeah.
mean?
But hey, everybody's watching. Thanks for tuning in. We got a little off topic there towards at the back, but I mean that's kind of what we do here because we don't rehearse. It's all raw. This is all live.
Right,
And we're gonna post it exactly the way it looks. He's gonna do a little
right.
bit of editing, but for the most part, everything that we say, everything that we do, it's gonna go right up on the website. Come check out the YouTube
Yeah,
channel. The Real
yeah,
Talking Points. Capitalize all the first letters of each word. The Real Talking Points on YouTube. Come check it out. Subscribe. Check out all 14. I put our last episode up. I got it up today. There's 14 episodes of content. There's a couple things from me and him on there. I was doing a little bit of like before I went to the gym when I was home, just talking about stuff. Get on there, comment, come over here, find us on Instagram, find us on Facebook.
yep,
We're both pretty active on TikTok now. We're trying to push some stuff out that way because it's a little bit easier to mass market everything. But we're trying to get people to the YouTube channel to see everything that we say.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, everybody, thanks for tuning in.
yep,
Reese the Poet, Zero Foxtrot over here, and we're gonna see you next week.
yeah.
Hopefully, if not, then we'll see you real
And,
soon.
and,
And this episode
and
will be up as soon as we get done. Yep.
Yep, and we love to have some people come on the
Yeah.
show, share your thoughts. We love to have some comments. If you have a topic that you would like to hear us, just run our mouths about, hey, drop it in a DM, comment on this live, follow, whatever the case is, send us a message, whatever the case is. We love to talk about it. Nothing's off limits, you know what I mean? We love to we want to get after it. And
especially if you disagree with us, that'd be
yeah, and if
great.
you disagree, for
Yeah,
sure.
come on on.
Yeah,
Come
yeah,
on. Let's
please. We want it. We all for it, man. Like, hey, bring it on. Let's put the gloves on. Let's get after it, you know. So,
let's get weird
yeah,
up here.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's
All right, man.
get weird.
I'm
Yeah,
going to bed. I
yeah,
gotta get
man.
to work. So everybody else, peace, and we'll see you soon.
All right, y'all. Peace.